Hello. So I'm going to make this one relatively quick, relatively brief, I should say. And the subject is preservation, um, specifically sharks. Conservation, perhaps, is a better word. Um, this is on my mind this evening because I've been watching one of the famous shows ever made, Jaws. This is 40 years, of course, since that's actually one of the oldest videos I've got. Had this for about 20 years. Um, But basically, this is the 40th anniversary of Paul's being released in 1975, 2015 now, of course, 40 years. Peter Benchley, who wrote the novel, um, famously said that he later regretted playing a role in demonizing sharks, um, because while shark attacks do very occasionally occur, particularly in countries like Australia, South Africa, very occasionally in the United States, um, the number of shark attacks, and particularly the number of fatal shark attacks on humans, is so small compared to the number of sharks killed by people each year for commercial consumption is it's staggering. Um, I think there's something like less than 100 shark attacks on people per year. I wouldn't like to quote a figure on that because it does fluctuate a little bit, but certainly less than 100 per year. Absolutely less than 100 fatalities per year, if even any fatalities per year on average. The figure for the number of sharks killed per year by people for consumption is staggering. 100 million. 100 million is the estimate. That is like the entire human population of the Philippines. This is a shocking figure. Um, and I don't really want to give a real moralizing video here, but I'm somewhat concerned about it. I've just watched an interesting video, and I'm going to put a link to this from, and it's about Palau, which of course is a small republic in the Pacific, one of the world's smallest countries, just 20,000 people. A few years ago, the president at that time, Johnson Toribio, um, decreed to the United Nations that Palau would become the first country in the world to enact a safe zone for sharks within their waters. That was a very welcome move, and a very good policy, in my opinion. The problem is Palau is a very small country, and it's very difficult for them practically to police this, um, because it is a developing country, and it's not. It simply doesn't have the resources to take on much more powerful countries that may be commercially catching sharks within the vicinity, at least, of their waters. It's quite clear that the consumer demand is going to primarily Asian countries like Taiwan, China, Japan, and elsewhere. The demand for shark fin soup, for example, is very high. It's seen as upper class status in places like Hong Kong. Um, and I really, really think that's a big part of the challenge. It's a similar issue with the demand for ivory because, again, that is representative of upper class symbol, so called. But the reality is, it's destroying wildlife. In the case of sharks, sharks have been around on this planet longer than the dinosaurs. And yet, the way this is going, if 100 million sharks are being killed per year, I don't believe anyone has a reliable estimate of exactly how many sharks are in the world's oceans, but certainly at that rate, they're going to be seriously endangered. And that would be utterly tragic because it just isn't necessary. It simply is not necessary. There has been a campaign by some Chinese media networks using celebrities like Jackie Chan and so on to try and prevent people buying ivory. That's very welcome. It's a very good campaign. I've seen it on CCTV and other Chinese networks because that's where there is a big demand. Um, so I think there needs to be a similar campaign, and maybe there is already, I don't know. But there needs to be a collective drive to really, really kill off consumer demand for this. Um, I know if it comes down to someone's livelihood versus a species going extinct, then those fishermen are just going to have to find another means to fish because this is We're talking about the potential extinction of a species here, and it's simply unnecessary. Um, I am a staunch believer in civic responsibility. What I mean by that is I don't believe that the world's problems are solely the responsibility of governments, and governments play a vital role. I believe that individuals also have a huge responsibility. So the answer is simply do not buy shark fin soup. Just don't do it. Um, Even in more authoritarian countries like China, um, individuals, especially from the middle class, still have a choice. They have a choice of whether to do it or not. And if they know the facts and they continue to do it, then they're culpable. And I do think they should be ashamed of themselves. Um, I'm not trying to make this an East versus West thing because in the West, I'm sure you could find plenty of examples of a consumer demand for products that are for species that are also endangered. So I'm not trying to make it an East versus West thing. I mean, certainly until quite recently, there was a demand in the West for fur. So this is something. I think it really comes down to collective responsibility. There's no honor. It doesn't give you a status symbol by eating a product that is from an endangered species. It just doesn't. So I think there needs to be a publicity campaign in areas where there is a big consumer demand to kill this trade off, really. And I welcome President Johnson Turobion's initiative with that. But like I say, this is a small country, and it would be unfair to expect Palau to act alone. So other Pacific Island nations hopefully will follow suit. I'm not sure when this legislation was. He's no longer president, so this may have been a few years ago. Be interesting to see to what extent, to what effect that has had. But the bottom line is, these animals are not being killed for medicine. This is not a necessity. Maybe they are being killed for medicine in some more traditional practices. I don't know, but I know the primary source is for food, and that's unacceptable because it isn't about survival. It isn't about human survival. We're not talking here about refugees who are killing sharks to survive. We're talking about people who really don't need it. Um, so I believe that the civic responsibility comes into this, and I just hope there is more initiatives in this regard. So let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me that it is about civic responsibility and not just, of course, governments have responsibility. Um, I believe, for example, the government of China can be helping more, simply banning exports. Of course, unfortunately, in politics, sometimes money takes precedence over ethics, which would be very sad. But I believe this is about collective responsibility, both governments and individuals. Um, so please do let me know your thoughts.